day. So I think we should give them a huge round of applause because finally they're saying something that we've always wanted to say about Kasiaron. So thank you. As we do in our culture and the way in which we do things, so I'm going to call on the former mayor of Mfuleni, Reverend Gift Muerani, to please come to the front, and then we can then start our program formally. So let's please give him a huge round of applause and welcome him to the front, Tate Muerani.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I have given up. My son always argues with me that I'm getting old. And I try to say no. But every morning when I wake up, I can feel that it is not like yesterday, you know. I can feel the pain. So some of us, we have outgrown the situation. I don't enjoy that part of my work. Every time starting. I'm really pleased to come, to be here. And firstly, I must say thank you to this group. I struggle to understand the concept. So today, I reflected deeply, theologically, on why Sharpeville is not a place for massacre, something like that. I don't have the program. And I realized something, that the journey from slavery to freedom is anchored by the concept of change. You change the mindset of people. From Egypt to Canaan, there was a shift. There was a need to make people to think differently. There were epochs on the road, on the journey. And those epochs, Sabo Amaleke and so on, the battles that this group of people fought towards their freedom. I started to understand, Hori, you don't get to the destiny unless you struggle towards the ultimate goal. And for that to happen, those who read, they will remember these words and they will tell me who said these words as I'm about to finish. He said, when I walked out of prison, that was my mission, to liberate the oppressed and the oppressor both. Some say that has now been achieved. But I know that is not the case. The truth is we are not yet free. We have merely achieved the freedom to be free, the right not to be oppressed. We have not taken the final step of our journey, but the first step on a longer and more difficult road. And that's where I anchored this organization, Sharpeville, Not a Massacre. When Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela made this statement, he understood himself and understanding the context, the terrain in which he was released to serve into. That freedom, stepping out of prison, was not the final stage of saying we are free. It was just a step into another terrain of struggle. And that's where we made a mistake. That's why I'm not proud to carry the Bible. Because I'm the Bible, I can quote verses and they don't make sense sometimes. That it was March 1995, we were in Vanderbilt Park. It was the second time in the month of March for the church to assemble in Vanderbilt Park. The World Church assembled here in 1960. It was the month of March when the apartheid system massacred the people of Sharpeville. Then the word reached Geneva to say something wrong has happened in Sharpeville, and therefore we cannot keep quiet. And the leadership of the church from the World Council of Churches descended to this place. A decision was taken that apartheid is a heresy. And a conference, therefore, was organized, go Kettersloe. Those who know Johannesburg, you know where Kettersloe is. Where a final decision was taken by people like Beyer Snowday and the rest, both Desmond Tutu and so on, to say, we are going to stand against this regime. In March again, 1995, we assembled again here in Vanderbilt Park, at a hotel in Vanderbilt Park. What do you call it? Riverside Hotel. We met there. The General Secretary of the World Council of Churches was here with his delegation, where we again said, now that South Africa has gone through the struggle of emancipation, we therefore now have to come to resuscitate the struggle for change. Where things went wrong is when we thought that the liberation movements can champion change in the country. It was good out there, but here at home, the terrain is different. It needed a church that understands itself. Hore, ki eng seo Modimo a se ratang. When you read the book of Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, it says, wena motho, o tseba seo Modimo a se batlang ho wena. But we failed as church to be contextual. We failed as church and as Christians to be critical. We read the Bible for the fact of just understanding verses without necessarily asking questions. These verses, what are they saying to us? What are these verses saying in my context? The sociology behind the text itself, the psychology behind the sermon itself. We just preach for the sake of getting numbers and collecting money that can pay pastors. Not including me. I don't get salary from the church. I'm now retired. But I'm saying these things to say, when these young guys battle at this concept, it's like the 10 Commandments where it started to change the thinking of the people who were on the road to freedom. And for us who are total emancipation, we must first reimagine. This is what we are doing. I gave my sermon a theme here, reimagine, because what you are doing, you are changing the image of a massacre to say people were massacred, but we cannot remain in that space of being victims of massacre. There's a need for us to say, how do we translate the message to influence change and attitude of people? Working in Sharpeville, nakuswa Merton. Until 1966, Kibeketa Sharpeville, Put was still 1447, Molefe Avenue. Sharpeville used to be a beautiful place. But Sharpeville was beautiful because of apartheid. We know there will be a raid, there will be things. But now that we are free, unless the new generation concept le tlanka yona, e tla re thusa go kwala dishebini. E tla re thusa go kwala di liquor outlets so that we can renew the thinking of society. We cannot be a society of drunkards. We can't. It was deliberate for the system to open where blacks can now drink whiskey and brandy. It was a deliberate act to making sure that we trunk and forget about ourselves. We then loosen up to a point where everything negative was for us. So I'm saying to the young people, little got this concept. Now Sharpeville, the legacy that I can say, my brother, I've left in the office is the struggle already. The United Nations declared Sharpeville a World Heritage Site. When UNESCO was here, Sharpeville, by register, it will be now a heritage site. The question, therefore, is, when I was talking to you, my brother, I said, "Can I give you crazy today about your project?" Unfortunately, they wanted to come, but they had other things. They are saying what Vegas street looks like today is horrible. We must never repeat what is being created Kosoweto. We must come with a new thinking. What should Sharpeville, how should Sharpeville look like? It must be a city. A Sharpeville, Habatubatako. You know that song airing New Jerusalem. Not Jerusalem, Ayani, Yaman, but I kind of spiritual one. New Jerusalem. We must build a new community. We must build a new society. A society, when somebody atewa go or artambo, I want to get to this place. The question is, how are we going to achieve that goal? We cannot afford to have a lot of churches, but there's no impact in society. We can't. What kind of church is that? The religiosity of people should shape their character and should build new content. That's what church means. It's not about how many verses can take you to heaven. Heaven, that's why the book of Revelation says, the covenant is among the people. Life of people should be changed here in the streets of Seiso. In Seiso Street, when you walk down in the street, it should be like you are walking the street of Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem. But we cannot have Sharpeville that now looks more terrible than before democracy. So it's a challenge. I'm not going to preach Neke's introduction. Next time, I'll keep my time again like I did today. You know, man, more dulantin, and they can't walk out. I must walk them out. So my people, by meeting and I really want to say, may the good Lord bless these young brains. Refloka prophets. Refloka profeta. Yesimba for some batho with a chelet, but for this and people who can agents of change. So Kamantuarialo Kirimohorona, Amudima Hoto Abelilona. Katasilin get a lefase monoka, Hobaning Baileba Potloha Marago Jericho 7 times. You cannot build on old things. We must bring them down. And then you can reconstruct again. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this hour. We thank you for the brains that you have installed in these young men and women of essence. We pray for our land. We pray for our leaders and government. Bless them as they are about to commence with the discussions. May all this happen in the glory of your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
I think that was absolutely amazing and incredibly powerful. When we're having conversations, Lekhoban is speaking ideally just as part of this program moving forward, Liz Chaba. We spoke about the miracle that happened out in Rwanda. And we spoke about the significance of events of that magnitude. The same magnitude, I think, that the Sharpeville massacre perhaps had in our area. Yet, when you look at Rwanda, since the taking over of Paul Kagame, whatever perception that you might have of him as a leader, he has changed the lives of his people. Dr. Rwanda spoke about something that is quite important. What have liberation movements done? What have they done? Look at Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe was supposed to be a liberator of his people. The very people that he educated and fought for, and some people died for, are now waitresses in our restaurants. So the importance or the impact that liberation movements have outside of picking up guns at the time that it was needed does not see any development. The only real example that you truly have, and Butebe, maybe you can be able to help us with this, because diarrhea Africa, right? Is I can only think of Rwanda. That today it is one of the leading countries when it comes to IoT. Formula One wants to go to Rwanda. We've been in power for 25, Baba movement, how many years has the ANC been in power for now? 25 years? 31. 31 years. And all over Africa and other movements as well, it's been much longer. But they choose to buy bullets before they buy bread for their own people. There should be no African child that should be standing at a robot begging for food. Right underneath us. And we cannot stand Rikotla Difuba and say that we have done well in all of this. But it begins with things like this, where, as you say, it needs a huge paradigm shift psychologically. Because this concept of, and now you're dangerous. For what? Because we're not so you know, the concept of just because it's allocationing now all of a sudden because of a construct of apartheid, there's nothing to be proud of. These are the kind of things that we should be proud of, that we are building and then changing as well, so that we can give a future to our children. It's sad. Go to the township at any point in time and throughout the country. Fortunately, through my work, I get to see the worst and the best of this country. 9, 10 mutsiar, who busy. Why pass school? And it seems as if it's no problem, sharp. And it's a construct of apartheid. It's a long tail of apartheid. But we must also introspect at some point in time and say, what have we done and what are we doing to change it? But anyway, so destination branding is ideally what we're going to be chatting about today. And we're going to be speaking about how we now reconceptualize the view that people have of Sharpeville. And it is not easy. I think it's an incredibly mammoth task, Eloring, we have to go through. Because it's easy to change people, but it's hard to change them up here. The construct of apartheid was not something that was done overnight, over even 30 years that people are in. It was done meticulously over years and years and years and years and years. Or even right now, they're still scared. So what they developed back then still has an impact now, 100, 300 years later. So how do you now start deconstructing that mindset that has been established and rooted and practiced and perfected over 300 years? So to take on something like this, to change the mindset of a people, is not something that is going to be easy. And very few. If we had Maporisa here, this hall would be full. There wouldn't be space even for parking, because they want to numb our minds. Absolutely nothing wrong with our Kwaito and what are they? What are they now called? There we go. Mapiano artists. you know? Absolutely nothing wrong. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of, the development that happens within a pop culture. But it would be full. When we're trying to clean the minds and change the construct and start speaking about things that actually build as opposed to destroy, the hall is empty. They ate, they left. It's unfortunate. But it's those that are the crazy ones, I get a brate. It's the crazy ones that change the world, right? It's the crazy ones that have an idea and say, I'm going to do it. Because today there might be 10 people. Next year there'll be 20. That next year there'll be 30. Soon there will be 100,000 and this movement will be felt. So don't lose hope. Nothing starts in the way that it's supposed to start because it's only those that care enough to listen of which this impact will have. So thank you very much to everyone that has taken their time and honored us with their time the day before public holiday. It's crazy. What is Friday's Eve? Our topic today is ideally going to be about destination branding, but I think before we go into the topic of destination branding, it'll be important for us to call Sechaba onto the stage, who's one of the people that came up with a concept that has been working tirelessly to make this day possible. So let's please give him a huge and rousing welcome onto the stage so that he can tell us ideally about Sharpeville is not a massacre.
I've always seen them do this on TV. So Lena, I want to do it. Did you capture that? Okay. Dumelang kaofela ka tlung. This is quite emotional and uplifting at the same time. Thank you for making time on a Thursday afternoon to come to listen why. Thank you. These two crazy minds, actually there's three crazy minds that said this big, bold statement that Sharpeville is not a massacre. The crazy ones, like Meg said. And we are overwhelmed about the support and the growth in a very, very short space of time after creating this. So short that even our YouTube doesn't want to play our live because we are a young organization. See, teething problems. Briefly, what Sharpeville is not a massacre is we created this concept of a movement that could help revive the economy of a region and also attract tourism and also change the mindset of the world of what Sharpeville is. I like to use the example of Google. I know I sound like a broken record to my colleagues. When you go on Google and you search Sharpeville, the image results are black and white and they're full of torment, terror, fear. So, which is why when everybody out there, oh, that place of the massacre, and I'm thinking, this thing's got to change. And this is our attempt of changing that in the positive way. We are not saying Sharpeville was not a massacre, but Sharpeville is Bully Hoku, Sharpeville is Dr. D.K. Huno, Sharpeville is Nana Coyote, just to name a few. So it is upon us to revive that. And under our NPO, we have 8 community development programs. I'm wearing one of them right now. So we do collaborate with local businesses and local organizations. And we have a tourism element which is carried out by people who have run the race. I mean, I learned new things about Sharpeville before I walked into the hall today. So the story is big, the story is large, it's bigger than us. And our community development programs involve education, health and wellness, job creation, also entrepreneurial mentoring. And all these programs, when we run them, we're not running them by ourselves. We collaborate with those that have been there before us. So I don't want to take too much of your time because you have important guests that are supposed to teach us further about how we then can revive this concept, take this concept and revive our region, Sharpeville and the surroundings. So ke a le leboha haholo, tse ngata le tla di utlwa from the panel, and please do make sure that you follow our social media pages. I'm the marketing guy. Go to www.senam.org.za. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Chaba. So just to quickly introduce the topic, which is called destination branding. You know, when you think about a couple of places, especially at an international level, even at a local level, there's people that have gotten it right. It's unfortunate that more often than not, the places and the spaces which we might claim or own have a bit of a different and a negative connotation to them, right? How ka kala hore o motho o ya Garankuwa, but as long as you're not driving a VW, ba lo e hutsa. Right? You go to any colored township, but coloreds are violent. Their story still needs to be told. Whether it's El Dorado Park, guy, born at Cape Town, everywhere. As long as there's a colored township, hey, you know? Yet when you speak about Hartbeespoort Dam, I get Harties, bro. People think about it, and in them, they see boat rides and they see sunset cruises. When they speak about Clarence, it's about the beauty of our own places. Hi, right? Clarence. None of them have a negative connotation. But the spaces in which we come from, are constantly labeled with a moniker that is negative. So, how do you now deconstruct that? And I think the panelists today have an incredibly difficult job on their hands, because disease in Sharpeville is not a massacre. Ki disease ya Soweto, ki disease ya Umlazi, ki disease ya Tabong, ki disease ya every other township that you can think of, ki disease ya the favelas in Brazil. Libona, they're a bit dark-skinned. It seems no problem. The minute your skin tone gets slightly darker or negative, and that's something maybe in we discuss as well. But we'll get back to that. It's a discussion for another day. It's definitely a discussion for another day. So just to maybe take you through who the panelists are, I probably don't have enough words to describe the caliber of people that you've been able to bring Kasia Rona Khobane-Lischang and your team. In no particular order of importance, Ndate Tebe Ikalafeng from Brand Leadership. Bratebe, thank you so much. It is an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you with us, Kasia Rona. It means a lot because we know the incredible work that you do on world stages, not only for South Africa, but for the African continent as well. Your organization, Brand Leadership, has been a true leader in its own, in finding us an identity in the world and making our voices heard at an international level. We cannot thank you enough for the work that you do, so that these very constructs that we're trying to deconstruct, you've taken it upon yourself to make sure that the world knows who we are and recognizes us for who we are. Because as an African, it is difficult to find your way and fight your place at an international stage, but you've taken that role upon yourself and you've done an incredibly beautiful job at it. So I think we'd be amiss not to applaud you, not to congratulate you, not to thank you, and not to honor you for taking your time in your busy schedule to be here today at the start of something so wonderful. Let's please give him a huge round of applause. And welcome him onto stage. That's our first panelist. Twanan Hlap, I've had the privilege and the honor of working with you. And seeing O nne meding ya le gaste re sa tsebeng fela go etsalang ka yona. And seeing the woman that Tswana has become, and how, from the beautiful young woman that she was as we were growing up, she has become this African queen, right? For those that know her, and really embraced not only our culture, but our beliefs, and more than anything else, Kasia Rona as well. You've carried it with incredibly broad shoulders, and you've made us proud. As we see your statuses on Facebook and the different social media platforms, it gives us a sense of pride to say, "Ke ngwana Kasia Rona," and that's where we come from, and that's what we come from. So thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you with us today. Carry on the incredible work that you're doing, not only for Kasia Rona, but for young African women as well. Let's please give her a round of applause and also welcome onto stage. Sanan Kap. And then I look to you, Silver Fox, said it's in here. He is also, out of his hectic schedule, he could be anywhere today. He could have been anywhere today. He's sitting in a hall in Valtech. Val University of Technology. How Valtech about apartheid museum clients, these ones. Baba, I've also had the pleasure of not only knowing you as a friend, but also as a colleague, sometimes having to interview you. We started a long time ago on this journey, especially within the tourism space. Sanzanekele YFM Libo Fresh, that's how old I am. And Bobs, you've always been incredibly passionate about tourism. We've traveled and seen many places. I remember one of the tours that we did was when you're trying to teach people about the inner streets of Johannesburg and where it started, and we ended up eating an Ethiopian meal at the top of Ponte. Do you remember that? Yes. Your work is not unnoticed, my friend. And for you to be here today and taking the time to be in the Val, because this is truly one of the most beautiful places in Gauteng. People come to Pondeval, they come to the river. I remember when I was still small, because I went to like white schools, guys, you know, so I used to ride my bike from Bereth Park through Valtech. My sister, Valtech. Go to Park Ridge, Kabayisikele, and come back. And in the afternoon, Tlong Sekolong, not the Val River, Bereth Lake. We used to go there and try and catch fish and try and bring crabs, and sometimes I'd bring that home and I'd freak out my mom thinking, what have I done to my child? He's a little white boy. But it's truly how the memories that I have of Kasiak. Those are some of the things that make this place absolutely incredible. They're coming to Pondeval now, they're going on to Stonehaven and seeing the boat cruises, but that's not just what the Val is about. We've got a rich cultural history in this province of ours. And I'm in this province and in this town of ours. But more importantly is the fact that you have recognized this. You've taken your time and you've given these guys a listening ear when many have fallen on deaf ears. Speak to anyone that used to come out of Gruvako Valley, even in our time, how nakasi emunati and friendly as that, because how but ask anyone that has ever come to the Val, but there is not a kasi emunati skaval, young and old. Young and old, because I've met a lot of old people that have said to me, Monakasia, how I remember, oh, okay, it's a Val, Sibukeng, yes, all the Shabville, right, so I enjoy, and that is the beauty that we have, not only as a people, but also as an area. So thank you, Baba, for joining us today and being a part of our panel. Please give him a huge round of applause. So Baba also joins us here, sitting on the table as the head of destination marketing and communications at Gauteng Tourism. He's not just a handsome guy with a silver beard. I don't know if everyone on this side can see the panelists. So I want to move this lectern so that at least the people on this side can be able to see. And I'm gonna stand. Have an invoice in your lord, and I'm standing. Okay. But I'm gonna start with you, and I think one of the first and most important things is to maybe just unpack for us destination marketing, what it means. I think there's no one better suited. I don't think there's anyone that's better. Do you have a second mic? Do you have a second mic? Do you have a second mic for the panelists? Because there we go. Second mic. There we go. And I think maybe the first and most important thing is perhaps for you to unpack what we mean by destination marketing. How do you look at the uniqueness, the beauty, and the color of your destination and then take it out there into the world? What does destination marketing mean in your greatness?
In my greatness.
In your greatness, yes.
No, I think at its simplest definition is every place. I mean, there's 100. Oh.
You see, we're now decreasing invoice.
I think there's about 193 countries in the world, United Nations countries, and I've been to 125 of them. And the thing to understand is if there's so many countries in the world, how does one person choose one over the other? And that's why at its simplest form, destination marketing is understanding that every place competes for a share of attention, but also a share of the wallet. Where do I go? What do I stand for? And where do I spend my money? And that's what we all compete for every single year. And we compete on multiple things, the same way that everything else in the world competes on. We compete on our culture, we compete on how we run our countries, we compete on our heritage, we compete on our institutions. There's multiple things that we compete for. But I think I want to, not to belabor the point, is to remember that every country, every place competes for a share of the wallet and a share of attention. At its basic form, that's what destination marketing is. And how you differentiate yourself is how you win in the world of marketing. And the mistake that we see a lot of times is other countries want to be other countries. Rwanda puts a badge on the sleeve of Arsenal and say, visit Rwanda. South Africa wants to run to Tottenham and do the same thing. That's not how you compete. How Ghana competes cannot be the same as how Kenya competes, cannot be the same on how South Africa competes. Because what you need to do when you're building a great destination is to ask yourself the question, how am I going to stand out among 193 countries? What is it that is going to be my differentiator? Or what value am I going to add to that person who's got an extra rent that they want to spend on travel, on visiting another country?
Absolutely fantastic. When you look at a place like Sharpeville, in fact, not even look at a place like Sharpeville, when you look at townships in general, especially throughout the Gauteng region, how do we start then having those identifiers that make them truly unique, right? Because we know that they're unique. Haole Sharpeville, it's not like Haole Sebokeng. Haole Sebokeng, it's not like Haole Boipatong. Haole Boipatong, it's not like Haole Bophelong, right? Every single one of them has their uniqueness in some way, whether it be language, the way that they dress, you know, how they drink, their girls, the places to go to. You know, there's something that is totally unique about each and every single one of those places. And I'm speaking just here, Kakaval. So it's not make sure. Plus free start. But what are those unique identifiers that our townships can start using so that people can then make a decision to say, I choose Sharpeville?
And you have activated JJ when you spoke about Sasol. So you can sit down, JJ, it's okay. So maybe just as some statistical anecdotes. So of the top 20 most populous townships in South Africa, Gauteng has 13. 13. Of the top 5 most populous townships in the country, Gauteng has 4. So Gauteng is townships. The gold that is in the name is not there. The gold that is in this province, it's here in this hall. No other destination or province or city region in South Africa has close to 16 million people. Therefore, our new gold, the commodity that we trade with, it's found in our townships. That's the people. So that's what we trade with. So by nature, the people are not homogeneous. Therefore, you can't expect the townships to be homogeneous. But the trick is in turning it around and making sure that you now aggregate. So you use the fact that you are a township. That's why Kasi. And then the second question, which one? But when we say Kasi, there is no ambiguity about what is Kasi. Therefore, that's the anchor, or what we call an anchor brand. In a process here, a hub and the spoke and the wheel. So Livili la bicycle has that thing in the middle which anchors all these spokes that comes from different sides. So the township is the hub. And then Katlehong is the spoke, Sebokeng is the spoke, Sharpeville is the spoke, Bipatong is the spoke that enters into these townships, into this heart. Therefore, the power lies in us aggregating and understanding our comparative and competitive advantages and how all this comes together to create this unique thing. Nobody asks or indicate that there is the green flavellas and the yellow flavellas and the maroon flavellas. They are all talking about the flavellas. We even think they are in one space, but they are not in one space. And for me, the message, as we start dealing deeper into destination branding, is to understand our unique proposition. And our unique proposition is in these numbers and in these anecdotes. We don't have the mountains. We don't have the oceans. But nobody else has 16.5 million people. And these 16.5 million people are not just in Sandton or in Sandhurst, the richest square mile in Africa. The bulk of them are in the townships. And in the townships, that is where we then find our synergy and our energy. So destination branding and leveraging the townships is all about spaces, places, people, and the ways. So just to give an example and divert, Kopitori, ne? Pitori is not a place, it's a culture. Rejazaka, ibile rezazaka. But that has direct linked to the South African Reserve Bank. South African Reserve makes the money, prints the money. Therefore, when we say the positioning of Rezazaka, ibile Rejazaka, ibile Retlabaya, comes from an understanding of the anchor, which is the Reserve Bank, which then translates into the township. And I just wanted to make an example of that. So sometimes things that are around us, we take them for granted. And that's how we need to be looking at this. Sharpeville doesn't need to be a big player to be Patong or Everton or Sebokeng, but is the hub. As Tate Moerane told us, its call was heard at United Nations. Its call was heard at the Council of Churches. And then how do we use that to attract and then thematically disperse to Bipatong, to Everton and the like? Because you can't want to introduce new things. So, OR Tambo International Airport, as I wrap up, is in the city of Ekurhuleni. Before it was Jan Smuts and in the Johannesburg airport. Right now, flight BAS34, when it leaves Heathrow, it says it's going to OR Tambo Airport, Johannesburg. Even the pilot says though, even the check-in says so. But me and you knows when it lands in Ekurhuleni, not Johannesburg. But we can imagine if the pilot is to announce, ladies and gentlemen, flight B811 heading to Ekurhuleni, can't even pronounce it properly. Everybody will have a fright in that flight. And when it lands, they will think they have landed in a wrong space. And that's the power of Johannesburg. Over 137 years built. Therefore, you don't disperse that because we have built a new city over the past 16 years. You use Johannesburg as an anchor, and then you can disperse thematically to the rest of the region. And I see Sharpeville playing that anchor role. Thank you very much.
Powerful. Incredibly powerful. I actually want to, because I want to make notes. There's a lot of stuff that you talk about. I'll always be a journalist, right? So Tswana, I think, and I didn't, I know chivalry still exists, and you know, people say ladies first, but there's a reason why I wanted you to talk last. Please take the mic. Because there's many concepts and ideas and ideally descriptions which Tebe had earlier on. It's almost a commoditization, if there is such a word. Commoditizing this gem or this anchor that you know, Baba speaks about when it comes to Sharpeville as a destination. You probably have the hardest task and the hardest question that I'm going to ask here today. So my question to you then is going to be, who are we? How do you describe Motho wa Sharpeville? Because we spoke about that uniqueness. You're fighting for how many? 126 countries? 193. 193. You've been to 126. You see, yeah, man. I've got like Jacob Zuma maths. So yours is then give us who we are. Give us that identity, right? Hore, when Butebe or Brababa wants to go out there and say, we want to market Sharpeville, how do they describe it? Who are we? Reboma.
Okay. Dumelang. Sanbonani. Okay, so I think this is twofold, right? Who we are one. I was in Joburg somewhere, and somebody asked, "What's our valley? The way valley thing, you know? How we have that pride even if we're outside, right? And it's that unity that was formed long before we were born, right? To a point, our parents intermarried one another, right? How they're trying to place you. Because there is that about the Val. And then Spooken then becomes a product of Everton Levale. It's a new generation. How 18 Emoyeni, that's the children now. That's how they identify it. There's always been that sense of culture about us as Batwa Baval, and a sense of community. You know how can I get 15 people like because it's really Joburg. Yes. Because Joburg is a jungle, right? Come on, you feel safe, right? Something will happen, right? Safe. Yeah, because you know, you're not trying to look over your shoulder so much. And then the second part, I think this speaks to what he was saying, where we build on what we have, right? It might not be what we like, but we build on what we have. This area, pre-colonial, had a very thriving community, where African people were thriving, and you know, and it's a true fact because the artifacts are still there. e bontsha hore pele makgowa a fihla nageng le batho, right? And then when they came here, seeing all of that thrive, re nang le yona, and discovering the minerals, which is the coal, the steel, and the water, they saw opportunity. And then they started fighting amongst themselves for these spoils of the land, taking Batuba, who used to live here, and putting them in their wars and in their concentration camp. So how, when post-94 came, we branded ourselves, or I don't know, but there was this moniker that Val is the cradle of human rights, right? This is because of the concentration camps that they put our people who had a thriving community before. It is also because in Vereeniging, when they decided they are no longer fighting amongst each other for this land, they're going to make peace and then use us as the tools. They negotiated that peace in Vereeniging. Then the 1960 massacre happened. And then 1984 Val uprising happened. And then the Bipatong massacre happened. And when Mandela came out, says, you know what, we're gonna reverse all of this and sign the constitution in Sharpeville. So everything else that they did, in this way. And this is where we failed Project Mandela, because he had a foresight, or we need to do what Harvard is saying. Or we cannot still stay there in that massacre state. We need to be the address of the best constitution in the world. So when you ask who we are, I feel when they say Switzerland, why go Switzerland and go complain about human rights, we are a practical version of a human rights center for the continent and also for the world. Because Go Geneva, they have that as a brand, but we have a lived experience of how men can be cruel to men and how men can reconcile with men in hopes of building a better future. So ke rona batho ba.
Can we have a round of applause? Wow. Looking at it through that lens is different. It almost gives you a sense of identity. Because I think for a very, very long time, the sense of identity that yes, we are proud people, but Sharpeville is booking wherever we're very proud. Very quickly, with Joburg, wherever it is, there's that uniqueness that you immediately recognize, and you're like, okay, when now I can talk to you. But it goes back to that, Mutebe, right? When you spoke about, destination marketing is about, the land, the people, this. There's so many things that there are that differentiates you from everybody else. Many as those countries are, there's something unique about each and every single one of them. How do we then harness that uniqueness? What Tswana was speaking about right now, how do we harness that? Because for a very, very long time, I'm from the Val. Some of the stuff that she's saying, I'm like, shit, yes. Because we forget it, right? We forget it, we don't celebrate it, we don't do enough. And another thing that which Reverend Miranda spoke about is that let's not put all our hopes and dreams in the liberation movements, because this is not a liberation movement. But look at what it's doing in terms of just giving an identity to a people. I mean, I still have a huge issue about when you speak about a country, you speak about South Africa. It's about as fucking creative as the person that painted the Japanese flag. You know what I mean? It's, like in South of Africa, we're in Africa, but we're in the South. There we are in the South. You know, like we don't have a name, we don't have an identity. And it's difficult as well, and that's why we see ourselves as tribes and this and this and this and this. And we don't feel as one people. I'm from Rwanda, you're a Rwandan. We're from Ghana, you're a Ghanaian. That's it. Rwanda is Africa, the South, we're this. You understand what I mean? I mean, I still have an issue with that, and it's a story for another day. But now, how do we harness these very things that Twan is speaking about and turn them into a place of being revered?
But I think there's no problem with being Botswana, Basotho, and all those, because that's the color that makes South Africa so different.
Yes.
Because the problem is when we use that to divide each other, not to come together in something that's more beautiful together. I mean, I remember when I first went to Rwanda, just to pick up on Rwanda, when I went first, arriving in Kigali, and I had the porter carry my bag. And as we were walking in, I said to him, "Which one are you? Hutu or Tutsi?" He says to me, "We don't speak like that in this country. We are Rwandese." And at that moment was so profound.
The message had landed.
The message had landed. So I understand where you come from when you talk about you're still looking for what does it mean to be South African. Because to me, South Africa is all of us, as you said. That's what makes Africa beautiful. The difference, the problem is that we have not been able to use that as a differentiator in a good way. Even in government, instead of saying how do we move South Africa together and using the different talents that we have. So if I look at the different cities, I mean, it's so interesting because I was not trying to think about before I narrow it down to that. When I look at the different cities, now you look at a city like Asmara in Eritrea. So, and you know, when you're driving through our cities, and you started with that, kidi pothole, kidi pit latrines, and all those. And Murutu Moerane said it earlier, like, where did we go wrong as a people? But now I look at a city like Asmara, which is the capital city of Eritrea, which is a World Heritage City, one of the World Heritage sites, if you will. Asmara is exactly as it was in 1941 when the British defeated the Italians and the Italians left. It is as clean, it is as pristine, the roads are as perfect. Because as a people of Asmara, the people of Eritrea, they told themselves, if nothing else, we are going to maintain this. If we're not going to build on this, we are at least going to maintain this as it is. And our differentiator in the world is going to be a World Heritage city, the only World Heritage city in the world that stands as it is from 1941. So you have to find how you differentiate yourself. Now we go to Accra. Now, Accra is the capital of Ghana. And for a long time, when we think about Accra, we think about the Ashanti, the gold, the royal, but it wasn't strong enough. But then they felt, can we do something, maybe a little bit to do in Sharpeville? They said, can we go back to our history a little bit? What is in our history? And then they said, you know, a lot of the people who left the continent in the 15 and 1600 to go to America, to go to Europe as slaves, most of them came from West Africa, particularly here in Ghana. There are now the diasporas in the world. How do we reverse that? Instead of focusing on the hurt, how do we focus on the positive? Because you know, we can cry forever about the from 1984 to 1960. We can cry all year long, but that's not going to rebuild this place. What they then decided, they said, why don't we reverse things and make this country, this capital city, and start with the year of return, where we ask any African anywhere if you want to come back home, come back via Ghana. And now every December, wherever we go, they run to Accra to December because they want to be a part of a returning Africans. And they even say, an African anywhere, the same way as the Jewish do, we will give you your citizenship to come back here. Wow. So the problem that we have with South Africa, the problem that we have with South Africa, beyond the fact that we have no government, if you will, or we have no caring government, or we have no people who actually build, is the people of the country, including the people of the cities, including the people of the townships, are the very people actually who have killed the cities. Because we are the very people who, when we drive, we throw a can outside. We are the very people in these places, when somebody asks for a bribe, we pay for the bribe. We are the very people who destroy the very thing that we have. So, and we are the very people, when we put Moerani as mayor, we now elevate him from a common citizen, from one of us, to now a god. And we now start moving when he comes. We take the bad side, he goes on the right side of the road. Because now we elevate politicians to deities instead of public servants. Because what we need to do to rebuild our cities, just before we differentiate ourselves, just to rebuild our cities, is to take back our power as citizens, is to hold the people we put in position, not in power, the people we put in positions accountable for the positions that we put them into. To use the power of our votes, not as a favor, but as a currency where there is mutual exchange of values. I give you your vote, my vote, you give me a better city. That's where we just to start, just as a start. Now, having said all those, you know, like they said, I'm from Kimberley, I'm from Kgaleshewe, and we always used to say about Kimberley, when I was growing up, we said it's the city of civilization. Even our number plate said CC, because it was the first place with the street lights, the first place in the world with trams, the first place where the diamonds come from. So we used to pride ourselves with that. But when I go back now, it looks exactly like this. It looks exactly like many of the cities that we have, because we failed to build onto the one thing that differentiated us. That if Kimberley was the city of civilization, could we not have converted it into the center of innovation for Africa, or the center of innovation for South Africa? Could we not have used that as the foundation, the place where Wits University was founded, Kimberley? We could have used that as the center of innovation. Now we come here. I absolutely think you summed it up so beautifully in terms of what this place could be. Because when you go, you know, I was in WEF this year, and I was in a panel with the people from Switzerland, and I was looking at them, how they talked about what Switzerland stands for. They said Switzerland is about security. You can trust us. They said whether you put your money here, whether you put your investment here, you can trust us. So they built a whole city around the idea of trust. Now let's talk a little bit about the similarity between you, perhaps, and Rwanda. Now, what did Rwanda do? Rwanda did the one thing that we in South Africa have failed so dismally, particularly places like this. Rwanda said, yes, we have gone through a difficult time. This is what we're going to do. We are going to institutionalize the memory of the place. So yes, we've got 21 March 1960 every day, but it's just a holiday. You'll see us tomorrow. We are just going to be hanging around. Some of us are going to get drunk. But what Rwanda did, they really take it serious. It is not a Rwanda, it's not a Kigali thing, it is a all Rwanda thing. They have institutionalized that so that we should never ever forget and never ever and always come back. I think, well, I've seen the Oscar Peters, not Oscar, Hector Peterson in Soweto, and I think it's a fine institution, but even that is just a day in our lives. But I think if you go to the Kigali Memory Center of Genocide or Memory, and you go around the churches, they have made sure that you truly never forget every day. But beyond that, they've said, how can we turn this into something positive? Because we cannot focus our energies on saying every day, Sharpeville is not a massacre. What is Sharpeville? So we need to go towards what is Sharpeville. But what is Sharpeville should be of benefit to this future of this country. It's what does Sharpeville contribute to South Africa? And having summed it up as well as you did, the question now is, so what do we do with that currency? And how do we ensure that anybody in the world, in South Africa, anywhere else, comes here first if they want to understand how you deal with human rights? I don't even think we've done that. I think we've just done it as a date in our diary and remember it as a difficult time in our lives, but we have not turned it into a proper currency that we can use. And neither have we institutionalized it as well as we can. Because if you go to our schools, we don't have textbooks that tell us our stories. Last night or 2 nights ago, I was in a panel with AfriForum and the United States in Joburg. And I closed my remarks by saying to him, whenever I move around South Africa, across my place in Cape Town, I see the Voortrekker. When I was growing up as a kid in South Africa, it was part of the curriculum. You had to know those bloody points. I knew them off my heart. I could draw that. I can't draw the history of the new South Africa or the struggle of South Africa because it is not part of my curriculum. Because when it is part of my curriculum, they say as long as you get 30% of it right, you're okay. I should be getting 100% of it right for us to move forward. So it is what we do from what Rwanda has done. They have got it here. It is at the back. We never forget it. But what have they done beyond that? They have then decided, how do we then reimagine this city? They did a couple of things interesting. One, it is the cleanest city in the continent, in the world. One of the cleanest in the continent. What is the second thing that they've done? Every third Saturday of the month, they have what you call umuganda, where everybody in the city, you are not allowed to go anywhere between 8 and 11 on that Saturday. Your job is simple, is to clean that place. Is to clean the place if you don't get fined. And I've been to one of them and to try and understand. And I said, it is the culture that they have created. So what we lack in South Africa, we have a good history in Sebok, in Sharpeville and all those. But what we don't have a good culture of how to cultivate this differentiation and build on it.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. Wow. Baba, I'm going to go back to you again because this is fascinating conversations, and I think anybody that comes from Kokasi will appreciate what is being discussed. Sitting at Gauteng Tourism and being head of communications as well as destination marketing, my question then to you is, whose responsibility is it? Right? Whose responsibility is it to do all of these wonderful things that Butebe is speaking about, to commoditize the area, to show the uniqueness, to showcase the greatness of the area? Because you, from an administrative point of view, have some sort of responsibility, but when you speak about Val, when you even speak about you as a tourism authority, whose responsibility is it then?
Yeah, maybe, so I don't call myself the head of marketing and destination marketing and communication and chief marketing officer, and deliberately I am the chief destination marketing evangelist. And taking cue from Tate Moerane's sermon, and I want to tie into the points that Tebe was raising. For this to happen, and you'll understand why I call it needs to be evangelized. And that's the point Tebe is telling us, that institutionalizing it might seem too governmenty. And in our spaces, in our heads, when we talk about institutions, we talk about institutions of authority. Gauteng Tourism Authority, ke le pone sa ka Bayton, or tribal authority, ke ko kgotleng ko ba re go sekisa re be re go kgwatisa, stuff like that. But the institutionalization of this, in my understanding, is that we must evangelize it. and it being a little bit controversial. So if you look at one of the few sectors or subsectors that have continued to thrive, and unfortunately or fortunately, they are still dominated by a lot of people of color, black people, the church. How has it stood the test of time? The church and the religion and the entire system in their different denomination have created standard operating procedures, have created institutions and systems, including songs and consistency that we go to Merapelo this day. So what is our Merapelo? Is the Gigali aggregation of going out and cleaning at a specific time. There's no major difference there. I will make sure that mom is ready, has the food so that she doesn't miss Merapelo. And how was that done? It was institutionalized, it was evangelized, it was done through songs and praise and everything else. But we want to institutionalize, I don't want to say schoa, but we want to institutionalize out of 10. So the theme for here of this thing is Tlong Sekolong. And my understanding is that it's deliberate because the school is this, so that we can then evangelize this, socialize this, and it's specifically here, McFarlane, at the Vaal University of Technology. And it's unfortunate, like I was saying, that the people that need to get this message are not even here. But we need to move beyond that to the schools. The grade 11 and grade 12 curriculum have everything that has to do with Sharpeville, Maropeng, Cradle, Cornhill. Is there, is in the LO subject. So our schools programs, our educators programs, apparently there's one district where they all got low marks in LO and the answers were the same in a district. That means the entire teachers are teaching twak. Because it can't be that the entire region, district, the answers are the same. It comes from the educators. And to your point, to say who's responsible. The institutions here, we should be then saying with the colleagues from the university, how do we evangelize, formalize, and create the necessary systems, including SOPs, that can put to life the cradle of human rights, the center of human rights, and literally go and present it as part of the institutions that reimagine Vaal, reimagine Citibank, reimagine Gauteng, reimagine South Africa. You already have the Constitutional Court in Cornhill there that is linked to this specific place. So when UNESCO last year decided to declare 12 sites of Nelson Mandela legacy sites, and they decided to name them Nelson Mandela legacy sites, it relates to what you're talking about what Tata Madiba was trying to show us by wanting to reverse all of those things here in Sharpeville. But if you look at those sites, Mefalen, is Union Buildings. The last place where he laid in state before that chopper went to, that aeroplane went to Kunu. Is Lilisley Farm, the place where he orchestrated Operation Vula. Ne? It's in Constitution Hill, the same space where he was incarcerated, Mahatma Gandhi and many others. It's the streets of Orlando West. It's Sharpeville Police Station. It's Sharpeville Burial Site and Sharpeville Memorial. These are all listed as Mandela World Heritage Site Series. That means as Vaal University of Technology Center of Human Rights, we have an opportunity to leverage on this and go to UNESCO. Say, can you partner with us in building this as an actually institution in this specific university, so that we don't regard this as a tourism issue. It's a humanity issue. So that when we say we must propagate message about human rights and what happened here and how that was reversed, When Buipatong was burning, and we wanted to literally take up arms, Mandela said no, you know. So for me, the issue is the responsibility of making sure that all of these things are done lies in all of us. You can bring nice campaigns and everything else, but if people continue to litter, nothing's gonna happen. Just for right now, just to give you an example. So Coca-Cola decides that they want to brand and sponsor the South African G20 program, and they wanna create a Coca-Cola G20 can. And the crazy baba in me and says, oh great, can we actually even put the townships in those cans? Coca-Cola, Katlehong, Coca-Cola, and then we actually incentivize the spaza shops that have registered to be formalized to get this batch of Coca-Colas from the Coca-Cola company. But the corporate in me and the consciousness in me says, but they are fighting you indirectly on your sugar tax issues. Will that batch of G20 be on a Coke no zero, or will be on the other Coke? So therefore, even when you want to bring in partners, understand that there are all those things. So my point here is that just like the religion, just like the church did, they even created the guild, the what is it? Katekasima, I'm Methodist, so through the Sima, there's a Madodana, there's Bomme. Those are institutions, not institutions of authority, ne? But institutions of power and doing the work. So we need to go back and look at those. I always say, and I'm non-religious, but my best teacher in strategy and execution is the Bible and the Christian religion. It has the disciples, it has the people on the ground, it has the standard operating procedure, it has everything laid out in that, it has even the chief destination market, who goes and like. So why can't we replicate such institutions and not put them institutions of government, but institutions of people's power? And for me, I look at the Sharpeville, it's not a massacre, as one of those institutions of people's power. And that's why.
Can we do something with the mic?
Yeah.
Gents?
Mic test? Okay. Mic? Okay. So that is why I didn't hesitate when the guys approached us. And that is why we are here, because it's through them that we can start making a dent. But I want to see more of these types of, and like I've said, the hub and the spoke again. So this collective in Sharpeville, the collective in Alex, the collective in Mamelodi, the collective everywhere else, they form what? The Sekete. They form by Mfankhedi, Bamurena Jesu. And that's how we're going to get it. So the responsibility is in us, this evangelist that needs to do this. If we put it in formalized institutions that you vote for every 5 years, that is why there are no elections again. And it's because of an understanding of everybody rallying behind a central call of making a better South Africa.
Thank you very much. That's absolutely powerful. Twana, I think Hauna Mutua Val that doesn't have this conversation. I'm asking you all the difficult questions. It's a conversation that we have, you know, in our homes, in our townhouses, in our flats, every time we meet at restaurants, at clubs, at parties. And the question is, where are we failing, Twan? Right? Because the culture is there. Ask anyone wako vale, they are proudly motu wako vale. You understand what I mean? Whether Sharpeville is booking, Bopelong, Patong, Everton, Motuaval is proudly from the Val. But where are we failing? Re hlolwa ke eng to institutionalize this. You know, bua ka yes, bua ka bana hore, you know, all of a sudden we're into 18 hours emoyeni ukuya nokubuya, you know, re matadiana, what. And that is a microcosm of the culture ya the Val, but also the pride ya Val. You know, because Tabaya 18 is because of how proud we are in the way that we dress, the way that we look, the way that we see ourselves, right? But where are we failing, right? Majita Val, Majita's booking ha khono kopana la Sharpeville. A Sharpeville ha batho utlwa nexe ulwa buipatonga ha batho bona ba bophelong, right? Yet hardly outside there. As I said, how bona motho wa Val, there's that sense of pride and that feeling hore o kwa heso. But yet right here at home, we're failing to do it. What we guy? Who's that?
Yo, I don't know, my guru, this is my honest, I don't understand what I feel like because it's not because of lack of love, because if I had like ratan, ne? So it's not because of lack of that. I feel
Oh, and let me maybe add a bit of spice to it, right? Is it also that thing, Bratebe, or Brababa as well, where even as a people, because it's not just maybe uniqueness, as Batubabatu, there's also that problem.
okay.
I think, and you know, every year for the last 15 years, I conduct a study called Brand Africa, Africa's Best Brands. And I've learned something, it's going to answer the question. I've discovered something which is interesting. Only 20% of the brands that Africans admire are made in Africa. So what does that tell you? That us Africans, if it has the word Africa in it, we do not like it. And it may go back to maybe we actually don't like ourselves and we just have never accepted it because we want to be validated by outsiders first before we take pride. So let's look at a simple example, Tsepo jeans. When Tsepo jeans started, this from Tsakane, when Tsepo jeans started the jeans, they were selling them for 499. There was a show on Metro at Furo, people were upset. The jeans, Tsepo 99, from a guy, Tsakane, Obitwan Tsepo. I'm not gonna spend my 499 on that jean, I'm sorry. Nkampanka horeka G-Style 3,000. That's how they were speaking. Because they were saying, I'm not valuable as a person. Then Meghan Markle came to, if you remember, he came with the son, Archie. And she bought a pair of jeans and they took pictures and they put them on the front of Sunday Times. The following day or two, they were calling Tsepo the GE guy.
It's a 400.
How do you defeat it for deal? 400, I don't know, it's only 400, 1,099, yeah, no. But Oscar Joseka price is not a problem, but the gene, that's Tsepo jeans. Because now somebody from outside came in and saw the value in you that you always had. Or the bag says, the bag, these are Mashangan bags. Now, these bags, now remember, they were given by the Ghanaians, they gave them, the Ethiopians, the Nigerians gave them to the Ethiopians, to the Ghanaians, the Nigerians gave them to the Ghanaians in 1982 when they were kicking them out. And they called them, and they said, Ghana must go. That's how the bags were called Ghana must go in that part of the world. Now, those bags, most of us here have had them somewhere in the house. Until 2007 or so, Louis Vuitton took them and put them on the stage. The people, Bako Ghana, finally I can use my bag with pride without anybody looking down on me. The problem that we have is us. We don't like ourselves at all. That's why now we are bleaching. India, and especially as India, we put a higher value. And because we don't believe that we are enough as a people. That is why we allow our cities, our townships to decay because we don't see value in them, because we don't see value in us. Because if we did, how do you explain us living in those places? How do you explain us having mayors, councillors in those places? But the councillors are Makhoa in the white suburbs, they work for them because Makhoa are not willing to accept that nonsense. So, where we all live, we'll see the white councillors. You'll see them on Saturdays, walking around, trying to make sure these potholes are closed, calling everybody. And you see even the governments, the cities, the city managers are running and working hard. But go township about Waisha, they're not going to do anything. They are, even we lack accountability for ourselves because we don't have standards. We have zero standards. And we accept anything that happens to us. So I always say at the end of the day, we cannot blame the ANC, the DA, and all those. We cannot blame apartheid and colonialism. Because colonialism ended in 1957 in Sub-Saharan Africa. Apartheid ended in 1994. How long are we going to keep blaming them? At some stage, we have to turn. Here's a quick parallel. 1994, 1 million people were killed in Rwanda in 3 months. Here, in 1960 was 250 people or so. But at 1994, let's look at the two places. 94, 1 million people killed in 3 months. The place is stinking. There's knives, there's pangas everywhere else. They're killing themselves, they're killing each other for one thing, for being Hutu or Tutsi. They didn't kill each other for anything else. Yes, it was fueled by the Belgians, by the French, by the colonial masters, and it was happening. At the same time, South Africa was starting to be the South Africa we had hoped for. The one we said we're looking for a better life for all. That's when South Africa. We have gone opposite. Rwanda has got the other way. We've gone down and they've gone up. Simply because the leadership had a vision for the country. The leadership says, what is it that we want to be? We are more than our hurt. We are more than the genocide. We are more than what colonialism has done for us. Rona, we are still stuck on every time there's a robot that's gone down. Raria did not build enough robots. But you've been in charge since 94. So why did you not build enough robots? ESCOM, load shedding. But yeah, you see the infrastructure for ESCOM was designed for apartheid, for Makhoa. But you've been in charge and you have spent over 100 billion and you cannot account for it. How long are you going to blame Makhoa for South Africa? We are the problem. That's who we can blame.
Hey,
Maybe just also, and I just wanna bring that back home to, the premise of my sermon, and again it's about. So I was talking to the guys. So there is a program on Showmax. It's 018. What is the code in the val?
016.
So there's a program there in Showmax. It's 016. So I watched it religiously. And I'm this person who watches. So I put my work ahead all the time. So even when I watch a show there, so this is a show about the Val. 016. And in there, in the content, the king is, or the main story or thrust is about the different wars and the issue that Meg was raising to you. This group is not like in this group, is even reflecting in the station 016 because it's a community radio station that is run by this group. There's another group wants to take out the station manager and put all of those things. So we institutionalize this instead of doing the opposite. So it's there. It's us. Whatever is right. So, Mac, even now, contemporary content that goes on media perpetuates those things. Hona le mantariana mole, hona le motho o rwele setlhako se se red le se se blue ka mo. Ke dilo tsa mo valley. you know. Nako gae mama na tla go shapa re ke dilo mang dilos. O ka re wala setlhako se se yellow le se se blue. But you see, and I'm not saying that's wrong. We used to see people but sola di casted, you know, and it was glorified. Hell, I had casted once a year, ka Christmas, le jelly, growing up. And now I'm told I must glorify somebody or Tlong casted. And that is our culture. Kebontariana or whatever that we called it. So it's in us and it finds spaces now in our popular media spaces. So how many books are out there that are about narrating? How many podcasts are out there that are narrating the story about Lefatshe la Bakwena, Mokweneng, and how this Kweneng came in as a bastion of reconciliation? What is the role of this university? It's marketing and tourism faculty. Going back to that point, it's us. It's us that are perpetuating, it's us that are condemning us to the ground, and it can only be us that lift us up so that we are able to see this. So apart from this t-shirt that says Sharpeville is not a massacre, I've been in destination marketing in Gauteng for almost 13 years. I have not seen something else. But I know there's a brand called Boys of Soweto. So the point is, it's not the lack of the content and the things that defines us. If you go to Union Building, and it's not just a Sharpeville issue, if you go to Union Buildings, you can't even find a coffee mug that showcases the Union Building. The same, you will get it in Washington. They will sell you a coffee mug of the White House. Here is the difference. In Washington, the White House, you see it over the fence. Ne? You check the White House over the fence. At the Union Building, the closest you will get is all through those steps of the Women's March, all way up, unhindered, with the biggest statue of Nelson Mandela in the world, the tallest in the world. You move through that, you get into Union Buildings, way almost into the door. That is why we developed a game now as Visit Gauteng. We're developing a game where you are able to play at the Union Building. And one of the characters, when you play there, we said, this character must be very naughty, must end up on the president's desk, having invaded the security. You collect the gold points in there. We are partnering with the South African Reserve Bank. And these gold coins, you can redeem them to buy merchandise of the Union Building, or you can put petrol to come to the Val and Sharpeville at Engine. So it's the infusion of modern day things that people interact with. The gaming is $1 billion space. But how do we get? At Sharpeville, right now, it's just that it's a holiday today. But during the day, the biggest crowd you get at Sharpeville, by the way, at Sharpeville Memorial, there's a library inside the memorial. The biggest crowd you will get is not inside the library with learners reading. You know where they are, outside. Why? Getting access to Wi-Fi. You know, and when you ask them, they say, no, we are applying. It's the culture and the mentality that we have set up. But it's up to the creatives, it's up to us to say, oh, they are hooked into that. How do we get them to then have the Val River, the Sharpeville, the police station, and the hidden spaces being the next level of the game that we have developed? So when you win at Union Building, you now come play at the Val. And we hope those kids now we can grab their attention, because their attention is in the Gazette. We must not drop them down and kill them forever. We must rabatataise, and it's through efforts like this that can start babatataise on the issues that are closer to their hearts. They are closer to their game, they are closer to their phones. It's how we start connecting with them.
I think I got the answer.
Oh, you finally got the answer. Yes. Okay, it took a lot,
Yeah, but we were slow.
Abapads.
And this is a reflection to Namek, Wena, and the people that I see in the room. The reason why Val is like this is because we left.
Yeah.
We left. We make Josie great. Every second person that's, whether it's behind the camera, whether it's a speaker, whether it's a presenter, we left. And the leadership that's left behind here did what they did. The cream,
our home.
The cream left. That is the answer.
Okay.
But
In
we can
closing.
come back though. But we can come back, nothing is stopping us.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because I think that's a mistake that we make, that we cannot keep lamenting the past. We can come back. And I think maybe this is an idea where we are here. Being here means the people from here are coming back and they're asking themselves the question. But I think what they also should do is they should not ask for permission to rebuild Sharpeville. So now there's a couple of examples that you must use. So Doe Steyn, he just died 2 weeks ago. Doe Steyn decided he's wealthy enough, he's used to a certain way of life, and he doesn't want to leave South Africa. He wants to replicate what our governments have failed to do in 30 years. He will create a city for himself, and people like him, and put 2 billion rands down to start. It became more. And right now, guess who's running to the city? The blacks, because there's not enough white people to live there. The very blacks who steal money from the government, they're the ones who are building houses there, because we know them by names. That's an example. But there's also another example from the colonizer, Afrikaners. They realized, seeing that we have destroyed their country, the ways of life, how they used to do, they went and recreated Orania. Orania is an idea. But Orania is doing all the things how we should be doing all our cities. Better transport system, better cities, own currencies, better schools, better universities. They have seceded without leaving the country. So what should the people in Bal do? We should be saying, Kimang utswang mo, onaling chat, onaling idea, onaling creativity. Can we bring those few together and come back and say, just from my township, can we recreate just Sharpeville to what we can be? That's what we need to do.
Whatever I was actually going to say before you went in, I was going to say, in closing, what is the one thing, and I feel like you've touched on it quite well there, right? What is the one thing that everybody here should be taking home? What is the one thing that everybody that is seated in this room today should be committing not only to themselves, but to the town as well? Hore, when you leave the store, let it not just be another talk shop. Let it not just be another event. Let it not just be another time to lament about what has happened in the past, as you alluded to earlier on. What is the one thing that you would like to leave with us that we can hold on to and perhaps trying to bring that change? And I'm going to ask that of each and every single one of you. But it's going to go in and touch it.
It's going to be 1 second. If it is to be, it is up to me. And I think Fela Kuti said it so.
If it is to be, it's up to me.
I think if it is to be, it's up to me. In other words, we need to take responsibility. And Fela Kuti said it so beautifully. He said, I must identify with Africa, then I'll have an identity. So you must ask the people of Sharpeville, do you identify with this place? Because that is who you are. And if you are happy with how it is it truly who you are? How can you turn it to be who you can be?
So my message, and as also a call to action, is us to embrace, and I'm adding myself in it, that indeed Sharpeville is not a massacre. And I and you, we are not victims. we are change agents and designers of and envisioning the Sharpeville, the Val for the future that is built on its heritage. Moma rokong le di pilara tsa one. So for me, what drives me is that while others talk, I go do it, and I've instructed that they must write it in my tombstone.
Of course.
Wow.
Okay, for me, somebody said, we don't own the land. We borrowed it from the youth. Okay? So if you know what it does not belong to you now, but you borrowed it from somebody who's still coming, how are you leaving it for them? Because it's not yours to do what you're doing now.
Incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give these panelists of ours a huge round of applause. I think there's not enough words to describe the volume of knowledge that we've received. With Tebe, I've got absolutely no words. I know your schedule, I see your schedule, we know the work that you've done, but for you to be sitting with us in here today, I have absolutely no words to thank you enough. Leboha from the bottom of our hearts that you have found time and space in your diary to be with us today. And Khobani, well done, and thank you for bringing us this wealth of knowledge here today. Bobs, I know you're going to be with us here the entire weekend, Kokasi, but that does not take away the magnitude of your being here today. As Gauteng Tourism Authority, in fact, we're even talking earlier on Tswana Hore, you know, we constantly fight about the fact that we feel neglected. You have shown up for us. You have really shown up for us. Thank you. You've shown up for these boys, and you've shown up for this concept. Thank you. Let me be the first. I'm proudly from the Vala. There can be no one that can ever make that mistake, regardless of what platform that I'm on. Thank you for showing up for us. Tswana, let's give him a huge round of applause as well. Thank you. Tswana, the wisdom that you have and the knowledge that you have about Kasiaruna is incredible. Let it not stop here. Let it honestly not stop here. Share it as far and wide as possible. Let us get us institutionalized. Let us make sure that it rings in every ear. Let us take that effort and don't stop. Remember, it's the crazy ones that change the world. It's the crazy ones. People look at us, or people look at what you guys are trying to do and think, but one day your madness will be understood. Yes. Thank you very much. I'm going to call on Khobane to please close with us with a vote of thanks quickly, and then we can call it a night and end off. So over to you.
Kilabili from the bottom of my heart. Mr. G, thanks for showing up. I think Meg said it well. You showed up for us. Tswana, we keep flying the flag, my sister. Tebe, thanks. I can't say more than what Meg has said.
I get paid to talk.
Yeah, you know, that's why we have him here. And thank you, man. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I got a small not a little request from our elder Ntatepi. So he wanted to say just a few words, maybe to thank you. He's our elder from Sharpeville. He made time to stay behind and be here. It's not normal for him to be outside at this time. So unkupila humbly, just for a few words.
Thank you. So that is the problem. I would really like to congratulate these guys out like a concept here. You know, like I said earlier, we are a failed project here, apartheid, and I'm going to explain that. NASA conducted a study in 1994. It was a longitudinal study. So they tracked about 1,500 children. So when they first conducted a test on creativity, imagination, they took these children and tested them on creativity and imagination. And what happened is they found out these kids, they were not at school yet. These kids had 98% of creativity and imagination. Then they dragged them later on at 15 years, and it was reduced to 12%. And when they entered university, it was 2%, which means creativity and imagination was being schooled out of us. And this is why this is, for me, great, and I really need to congratulate you on that. You reimagined this thing, which is something that was, you know, there was a system. Let me explain the system. You have been to McDonald's and you have been on their drive-through. So when you arrive, you input your order, then it gets processed, and then at the end, you get your order. So it's a system, it's input, process, and output. So what happens in that system is the same system is being used at schools and universities. I'm critiquing universities now, and I'm going to ask you a question. So that system works exactly the same way in schools to school out our creativity and imagination. And this is why I'm congratulating you really. And I want to team up with you, but we'll talk tomorrow because I'm still coming. So one of the things that happened is I've developed a concept called degovernation. Degovernation. Yeah, we need to degovernize ourselves. And this concept speaks to that. It speaks to the origins of Sharpeville and many other townships. And the question is, why Sharpeville? Why is it there? And it was during the industrial age. And it was nothing less than just a labor reserve for our own fathers. So it was a cheap labor reserve. That is the origin of Sharpeville. And that is why it's named after Mr. Sharp, who was the first mayor of Vereeniging. So it's those things that we need to deal with as process of degovernation. While I was at school in Motitim, I was asked a simple question. When did the history of South Africa start? And you had to say 1652. Otherwise, you don't progress to the next standard. And that was a big lie. And that's part of what degovernation is. When I was in a conference in California, this guy from England is a professor, asked me my name, and I said, no, I'm Devo Pizzo. He said, but what is your English name? And I said, oh, well, if I have an English name, you must be having an African name. What is your African name? That was the process of degovernation. So I'm seeing this as part of that degovernation process. I'll be quick. So I really want to partner with you. But here's my puzzle, and that is why I stayed longer. Why are we here at VUT? I mean, this should be held in Sharpeville. So we need to deal with that idea. That is part of degovernation. So my addition to this idea is next year we want to be in Sharpeville. VUT is a system. Don't allow the system to capture you, as it has captured many of us. Okay, so I capture is Italian. So yeah, for me that is the essence. The essence is we need to engage in degovernation. We need to bring that idea. In other words, liberating ourselves from these systems. For me, that will be a bigger project and a project that we should engage in. And for being here and saying what you have said. But my challenge to you is let us decarbonate ourselves.
Thank you, Ntate Pitso, for the wise words. I mean, look, I can't add to what has been said. I mean, the thoughts that were shared, the experiences from our panel. I hope it starts building the fire within you. The question was asked: what do we do when we get out of here? We've heard a lot. For some, it's information overload. We still need to process what we've heard. But the question still remains, what do we do when we walk out of this room? And then Meg, you asked a very key question, whose responsibility is it? It's every one of us. It's not the government, it's not the police, it's not the students, it's not an institution. It's yourself. The one thing that you are born with, how shaha, for ID number, I know it's part of a system, but you earn that by virtue of being born. Before you become a scholar, before you become a graduate, you are a citizen of a specific country, of a specific region, of a specific location or a town. Wear that with pride. Live that before you become a doctor, before you hold a PhD in whatever studies you may pursue. Wear that. That's my message to you. You are a citizen first before you become anything else in this life. And when you grow older, when you die, you'll have things that you have left behind that are tangible, that you can look at and be proud of. And your kids can live tomorrow to read about what you've done, to play with things that you've invented, to enjoy maybe the wealth that you've built. So each and every one of us is within us. Shaville is not a massacre, it's not ours. It's not mine, it's not Shaba's, it's not Dumi's. It's ours as a country, not just for Shaville. And even out there to the world, it belongs to the world. The people outside of this country, abroad, value Shaville more than the people in South Africa. Funny enough. They sit and read books about this place, but some of us have never read about this place. So let's embrace it. My message to you is that there's more to come. It doesn't end here. Shaville is not a massacre. I feel limo. There's more. Thank you guys. Thank you for being here.
Cool. So thank you very much for everyone. I hope you have an absolutely smashing long weekend. From my side, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to be a part of something so incredible. From my side, I'm McFarlane Muledi. Khotso, Pula, Nala. Thank you.